Hello, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we will be focusing on the home office deduction. This presentation is brought to you by the California Society of CPAs. My name is Darrell Young, and I'm a volunteer board member and the chair of the Financial Literacy Committee for the Peninsula Silicon Valley chapter of CalCPA. I operate a wealth management practice in the San Francisco Peninsula area. As you can see in today's agenda, we will be focusing on the basics of the home office deduction. We intend for this presentation to be interesting and informative. The data points contained herein are believed to be current. Please remember, however, that this presentation is intended to convey general information, which may not be applicable to your personal situation. Please do not interpret the information here as advice for your personal circumstances. You should consult with your personal advisor, or certainly feel free to give my office a call. As you can see on the right-hand side, you can also submit a question through my firm's website. So let's get started. We're talking today about the home office deduction, and anytime you talk about taxes, there is a lot of ground to cover. Certainly, it would be hard to do the topic justice within 10 minutes. But I am going to try to hit all of the high points in this presentation. Again, you see the agenda there on your left-hand side. So what is the home office deduction? Or stepping back for a moment, what is a tax deduction to begin with? You can see there the definition as stated, and then the home office deduction, of course, is exactly as the name indicates. How would you actually apply the deduction? Well, that depends. If you are a business owner, then you apply it on your Schedule C. If you happen to be an employee of a large company, then you would have to itemize your deductions in order to be able to use the home office deduction. Again, it's hard to cover the entire topic within 10 minutes. I'm going to try to hit upon the high points. But how much of a dollar benefit can you reasonably expect to get? Well, if you take the simplified method for calculating, you could perhaps deduct up to $1,500, and we'll get into some of the calculation later on. Where would you begin to form the calculation? Well, as you can see, there are a couple methods. The regular method, which would take into account the actual expenses related to the portion of the house being used for the deduction. So you can see some of the line items there, mortgage interest on the home, property taxes, insurance, etc. Or, again, as I mentioned earlier, the simplified method, which basically takes a certain amount per square foot, capped at 300 square feet of the house. Interestingly enough, you might also be able to deduct renovation expenses on the home as it pertains to the area in question related to the tax deduction. Who can actually use the deduction? Well, let's be clear, you don't actually have to own the home. You could also just be a renter of the house. I think that, again, as I mentioned earlier, you could be a business owner, you could be self-employed, you can be an employee of a large company. It applies to all types of homes. So, for example, could be a single-family residence, could be a condo. Again, it's not really relevant the type of home as far as the deduction is concerned. But what are the actual requirements? Well, there are a number, as you can see on the screen there. It needs to be your principal place of business. It needs to be used exclusively for the business. It cannot just be a matter of convenience. Now, I say all this because sometimes I hear from clients and friends who are looking to help reduce their taxes in some way, looking for ways to, for example, use the home office deduction. And I say to them, like I would say in most circumstances, that the tax code, at least in my opinion, is really a very common sense type of regulation. And by that I mean, if you have a legitimate business and you are using a portion of your home, again, legitimately, then you ought to take the deduction. If you are, on the other hand, trying to stretch the truth in order to find a way to take this deduction, then I would say it's probably not the way to go. So again, I would say from a common sense perspective, if you legitimately have a portion of your home that you're using for a business, then you ought to be able to meet these requirements easily. Where can additional information be found? Of course, the IRS website has a wealth of information. To that end, you could also look at the IRS publication 587. This talks about all the various nuances to using the home office deduction. Again, I tried to hit upon the high points in this particular presentation. As with any tax topic, it's really difficult to get through all the nuances. Hopefully, I've at least provided you with enough information to make a determination as to whether or not this would be useful for you. But what could your tax advisor do to help you? Well, obviously, your tax advisor would help to determine your eligibility for the deduction and also help you calculate the deduction amount and answer any other questions that you might have. And so, as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions about this particular topic, certainly feel free to ask your advisor or also ping my office if you like. In terms of future topics, I'd like to make sure that we cover perhaps the background, and we'll talk about primary residences, owning a house, rental properties, and other topics such as estate planning. I always like to end by saying that we believe that the cornerstones for financial success are the ones that you see listed on the right-hand side. Planning in accordance with your goals and your risk factors, giving back to your community, working with people whom you respect and trust, and maintaining a positive attitude and a competitive awareness. We believe that you are on your way to financial success if you are adhering to these attributes. And always remember that there are no shortcuts. With that said, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention during this presentation. I hope that it was interesting and informative, and I look forward to speaking with you again on future topics. Thank you.